of the north, where the black rocks stand guard against the cold sea. In the dark night that is very long, the men of the Northlands sit by the great log fires, and they tell a tale. They tell how a prince built a long ship, and sailed in it beyond the black ice at the edge of the world, to bring home his bride from the land of the midnight sun. Noggin the Nog was the name of the prince, young and strong and fair as the men of the Northlands are, and he was the son of Canute, king of the Nogs, the ruler of this land of dark forest and snow. This land of mountains and valleys, of deep narrow bays where the sea roars between the black rocks and the wind howls cold in the night. There was the little town of wooden houses, clustered by a bay where the sea was calm, and there above it was the small castle, the castle of King Canute. Now every morning as the sun rose, King Canute put on his crown and took his morning walk. Up the steep path beside his castle to the rock above the town, the rock which was known as Canute's seat. There he sat, and as the sun rose behind the mountains to melt away the black clouds of night, King Canute would begin to worry. He would look down on the harbour and the little wooden houses, and he would worry about his people, and what they would eat in winter, and whether their roofs leaked, and whether they had warm socks this cold weather. He would look down on his castle and worry about his queen Grunhilda, and who would look after her when he died, for he was a very old king and not at all well. And then he would think of his son Noggin, and he would worry about Noggin, because it was the custom in the Northland that the king should be married, and if Noggin had not chosen a maiden to be his queen within 6 weeks of his father's death, then he could not be king, and then the crown would go to his wicked uncle, Nogbad the Bad. And then the king would look out over the town and the bay, and see beyond it the forbidding turrets of the castle of Nogbad towering above the forest, and he would worry about Nogbad, and what would happen to his beloved people if the wicked Nogbad should ever become king of the Nogs. And the people of the town would look up at the rock and see their king sitting there worrying, and they would say, "Don't worry, old king, it'll be all right." But of course the king went on worrying just the same. Queen Grunhilda had had her bed moved to the window of the royal bedroom, so that she could watch the king taking his morning walk. Every morning, as the king grew older and more worried, the walk would take him longer, and the queen would lie in bed and watch him. "I feel I should stay here just a few minutes longer, dear girl," the queen would say to her maid, for the queen was called Grunhilda the Lazy One, and she hated getting up. "I feel I should stay here until my dear Canute has got safely up that steep hill. He's not looking at all well this morning, and I would hate anything to happen to him. Keep my breakfast warm, dear." And with a deep sigh, she settled back into the great heap of pillows and closed her eyes. But as she lay there, she felt in her bones that all was not well. She listened hard, but could hear nothing. So, with a great effort, she opened her eyes and sat up. There was the king on top of his rock, but he was not sitting down as he usually did. He was standing by his seat. And from her bed, Grunhilda the Lazy One could see that he was shaking all over in a most peculiar way. Then, as she watched, he staggered, slowly toppled over, and fell to the ground, dead. The people of the town looked up and saw their king lying dead, and great was the wailing and lamentation that was heard. The flags on the houses were pulled down to half-mast, and through the town the people heard the big bell of the church, tolling one sad note to tell that the king was dead. All were sad, save one. In his black castle, Nogbad the Bad heard the distant sounds of sorrow, and as he thought of the crown, the royal treasure, and the taxes, he smiled a greedy smile. Queen Grunhilda rose from her bed in the royal castle and sent for her son, Prince Noggin. "Noggin, my son, Prince of the Nogs, this morning I shall send forth 100 heralds with 100 proclamations, and they will journey to the far corners of the land and tell the people that the king is dead, and that his son Noggin will rule as king of the Nogs when he has chosen a bride from among his people. And therefore all the maidens of gentle birth in the land of Nog who would wish to be queen should present themselves to me, the Queen Brunhilda, at the royal castle within 7 days. And Noggin, we are going to be busy." Soon the sound of trumpets was heard throughout the land. On the battlements of every castle, on the balconies of the tallest houses in every village, the royal heralds could be seen. And oh, what excitement there was among the maidens of the land when they heard the news. And from castles and villages, dressed in their best with good walking shoes on their feet, the maidens could be seen heading for the royal castle. Queen Brunhilda received them as befitted their rank. And on the 7th day the time came for Noggin to choose. In the great hall of the royal castle, the maidens were assembled, multitudes of them in lines across the hall. And slowly Noggin the Nog walked along the lines, looking with great care. There were tall girls, short girls, lean girls from the valleys with hair as black as ravens' wings, fat girls from the castles of the mountain top with golden plaits and eyes as blue as the sky. And he came to the end of the line without having chosen. Or nearly to the end of the line, for standing next to the very last maiden of all was a large green bird. A strange bird, the like of which Noggin the Nog had never seen. What an odd-looking bird, thought Noggin. I wonder what he's doing here.